Main event this Saturday, we got Gervonta Davis stepping in there against Lamont Roach. Now, it's always a big fight when Gervonta Davis fights. Big pay-per-view star. Everybody likes to see him. It's exciting. Everyone wants to see what's going to happen. But if we're being honest with each other, the conclusion's already been made. Look at the odds on this one. Gervonta Davis is a massively overwhelming favorite. And it is for a reason. Okay? I don't have anything negative to say about Lamont Roach. But if we're analyzing these two fighters on paper, I don't see anywhere where he's better than Tank. Not one spot. Hand speed, foot speed, power, combination punching, ring IQ, big fight experience, all of it. Gervonta Davis is better in every single area. He's even I don't think like man for man, he's necessarily the bigger fighter, but he's been fighting at 135 and he's been fighting much bigger guys already. Look at Ryan Garcia, Mario Barrios. He's used to fighting these bigger guys. Roach is moving up from 130 to 135 for this fight. So he's at a disadvantage in a lot of different ways. But I will say one thing. The one thing that could potentially be a problem for Gervonta in this fight or future fights is his focus. It's the focus and the discipline, okay? Because there's such a small margin for error when you're fighting the absolute best in the world, when you're at the tippy top. We've seen him come out recently and talk about he's talking about retirement. He doesn't know how long he's going to stay in it. He doesn't walk around with that ferocity anymore. He's got the daughter now, and he doesn't really want to be that guy. Saw this recent interview. I think it was on Mr. J Hill Network. Great interview, by the way. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. But he's talking about how people wanted him to lose. People were putting him in lose-lose situations. He said if his father was around, he wouldn't even have to be doing this boxing thing. This isn't a guy who wants to be there. This is a guy who's fighting for the money. He probably fights a certain amount for the legacy and wants to go out there and continue to do well and things like that. And that won't necessarily affect him in this fight, maybe. I think, I don't even know, man, his girlfriend, his baby mama, something along those lines, had posted a picture of him smoking a blunt somewhere. Is he taking training camp serious? Is he working as hard as he should be? If he's only training at 80 or 85%, is that still going to be enough to beat Roach? But would it be enough to beat somebody like Shakur or Keyshawn Davis or somebody like that? He's on Twitter or X and he's getting into it with Terrence Crawford back and forth to the point where Terrence Crawford was on a podcast and he was saying, like, look, the dude's a good fighter. I respect him as a fighter, but I don't respect him or like him as a person, and I don't like his ways. So he's getting into it with people. Is his focus being pulled? Is he not as focused as he's supposed to be? Would it affect him in this fight? Will it affect him in future fights? That's going to depend on a lot of different factors. But when I look at this one here, I just find it hard to pick Lamont Roach, man. Even in this major Mike Tyson, Buster Douglas type upset, I just find it hard to pick Lamont Roach. And I think one of the things that really stands out to me is that last fight that we saw Gervonta Davis with Frank Martin. He is still improving as a fighter. And the thing that I really loved about that was how he held his shots a little bit more and where he threw those shots from. See, everybody knows Tank has the power and the explosiveness, the hand speed and everything. But if you throw those shots from too far away and you have to kind of jump in, you give people that extra half second to be able to see what's going on, and it gives them that little bit of extra time they need to potentially get out of the way of that shot or counter it. Look at a guy like Juan Manuel Marquez. There was a reason he stayed on that back foot and he stayed like a half step out of distance. Watch those fights with Manny Pacquiao was a perfect example. You know how explosive the Pac-Man was, but he used to keep that extra half step because that would force the guy to make that extra movement and would give him the time he would need to make the counter. Gervonta Davis, because of the way he loves doing things, he tightened up that high guard and he would walk closer to guys before he would let those shots go. And the perfect example is the Frank Martin fight. He would walk him down without having to shoot punches. He didn't have to control him with the jab first. He didn't have to work his way in and then shoot his power shots. He's got that, he creates that tension and that anxiety and that fear in people because of that explosiveness and that power, and they're so worried about that left hand. So he's able to go in there and walk guys down from a defensive position with inside that high guard. And then once he's already too close, then he's able to get that shot off. And at that point, man, it's so difficult to get out of the way of it. It's so difficult to counter it because he's already so close. Action beats reaction. I can get my hand moving way faster than you're going to be able to move your upper body. He's able to get his shots off. And look at a guy like Lamont Roach. He likes to get into that shoulder roll defense when he's on the inside. First of all, not great against the southpaw, right? One of the things that's beautiful about the shoulder roll is that when you can tuck that chin behind your shoulder and you can lean over to the side and lean back a little bit, it's a natural defense for the right hand. So you don't necessarily have to have a super fast cat-like crazy reflex because you already have that defensive posture built in. You're right. You're going to be able to use that shoulder. You're going to be able to deflect that right hand, take a little bit of the steam off. You got that left hand up that's going to be taking care of anything that's coming over. But when you're fighting a southpaw, the angles change. Okay, so then it's like, yeah, that can take care of the right hook maybe. Of course, the right hook can always try to come over the top of the shoulder, but that left hand is straight. That left hand isn't. You're not going to be able to use that shoulder to get rid of that left hand. And if you're keeping that right hand up here, that's tailor made for blocking a left hook. You get a guy who gets a little bit of an angle, and that left hand's coming in straight. That's not the defense that you need. That's the one that Lamont Roach typically likes to use when he gets on the inside. I don't think that's going to play well for him in this fight. So, long story short, I'm taking Tank in this one. I think he's going to be able to get him out of there before the end. We're talking maybe 8th round stoppage, something along those lines. I think what we'll see is a scenario where Lamont Roach looks good early on in the fight, maybe the first 2 to 3 rounds. Not only is Tank a slow starter, but Lamont Roach is an incredibly talented guy. So he's going to come out in those first 2, maybe even 3 rounds. He's looking pretty good. He's able to get the jab off a little bit. He's able to use his footwork and kind of get to some spots, maybe avoid some of the big shots, because Tank's going to come out there and he's going to try and intimidate him instantly by throwing super heat. He's not going to be active. He's a little bit of a slow starter. He's never been known for this high work rate, but the punches that he throws, even if he misses, he's going to try and increase the intimidation factor by just coming out there and firing him with as much heat as he can. As the fight goes on, that's when we're going to see the cream rise to the top. That's where we're going to see the skill set that Tank has and the way that he's able to set those shots up, the way that he's able to get to the spots that he wants. Before you know it, they're going to start landing. Wouldn't surprise me if he started landing early, 3rd, 4th round to the body and then started to work up, started to bring that uppercut up. Lamont Roach likes to lean over to his right side, which would be perfect for that. So, let me know what you guys think. Do you think I'm missing something here? I don't think this one is necessarily too difficult to predict. I think we kind of know how this one's going to turn out. I think the question is going to be, what does Lamont Roach do next? Does the man stay at 135? Does he go back to 130? What are we going to see with Tank? Are we going to see him in these really big, huge fights that we want to see him in? Are we going to see him fight the creme de la creme of 135 without having to drain guys, without having to bring guys down like Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios and putting in rehydration clauses and everything else? Where do we go from here? The guy isn't getting any younger. You could make the argument right now that he is at the absolute prime of his career. You want to see him in the biggest fights possible. It's going to bring him the most money. It's going to add to the legacy. As fans, that's what we really all want to see. Let me know what you guys think.